Today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and I'm going to start out with a real softball across the plate. Why is this day so important?
So in the Jewish community, we have observed a different date in April. Um, that is Yom HaShoah, Shoah, another word that we use for the Holocaust. But it was mostly observed by the Jewish community. And in 2005, through a motion by 140 states at the United Nations, they decided that it was important for the world to understand the importance of what the Holocaust meant and to remember this day, but also to encourage educational opportunities, which is a big part of what is done each year, especially through UNESCO. And it brings a broader picture, I think, and reaches a broader audience than what we do in April.
Hmm. As we get further and further away from World War II and the events leading up to the Holocaust that took place in the 1930s, do you think that public schools are doing enough to educate students on that terrible past?
Certainly at the moment, not. There are some absolutely wonderful teachers who understood the importance of this education. Now, just to be clear, that up until now, there's always been a recommendation that teaching about the Holocaust is a very good thing and it's very important, but there wasn't an actual mandated curriculum. So we've had, as I said, teachers that spend a lot of time on this and across the curriculum, whether it's literature, history, cinema, etc. And others that don't touch it at all, sometimes because they're not comfortable, they don't feel prepared. We have been at the Jewish Heritage Center and often in partnership with Manitoba Education and Training and other organizations, done professional development with teachers to provide them with those resources so that they feel comfortable. But I think that once we have that mandated curriculum in place, it will go a long way to ensure that students learn about this. And we hope that it won't just be a one-time thing, but that will be across a number of grades, and that the curriculum will be sort of a spiral one so that it will build on earlier education that they received when they were younger.
Mhm. And I was thinking about this when I was prepping for the interview. It is not only history that you can learn this through, you can learn it through language arts courses. I mean, the obvious thing, one that pops in my mind is the Diary of Anne Frank. Yeah, right?
Yes, absolutely. Night. There are a lot of the teachers that do teach on the Holocaust teach night, which of course would be for the high school students, Dive and Fred. But there are also many, many books, and in fact, on our website, we have a list of recommended books. And there are a lot of other websites as well that provide those resources, but there's a lot of excellent literature out there. I know that when my youngest daughter was in elementary school at a public school, they did a lot of exploration of Holocaust literature for young people.
Fantastic. Can you talk about some of the other resources? I mean, you're the director of the Holocaust Museum at the Rady Center. Is that museum open for school tours? And can you
Oh,
talk about
yes.
what can be found in that museum?
Yes, so we recently renovated our museum during COVID, actually, and we've added. So we've got at the Jewish Heritage Center, we also have an incredible archive, and the museum itself is a smaller space, and it was always a challenge to put a lot of what we have from our archive into the space. So we've now incorporated technology, and we have an interactive table where people can explore stories of survivors, and along with pictures of artifacts such as photographs, documents, etc. And it also provides a history of anti-Semitism, a history of post-war immigration, a history of anti-Semitism in Canada, and a history of the Holocaust broken down into smaller sections. And there's videos on there. We also have of course, what is unique about our museum is that all of the artifacts in it belong to local survivors. And I'm not really aware of another museum like it. The museum is open all the hours that the Asper Campus Rady Center is open, and people can just go in. It's really a self-guided type of tour, but it's fair the way that it's laid out. It makes it very easy to understand. And there are some really just incredible and moving artifacts in there. And then on the far wall, we have the names of the 1,500 survivors that we know of who
Mhm.
came at one time or another to live in Manitoba. And it's really beautiful in that the names, sort of a few names at a time, come forward into focus and then fade back, and then there's new names that appear. And then we also have a direct link. We're the only full access link to the Shoah Foundation Visual History Archive, which has, I think, 57,000 video testimonies from Holocaust survivors, including the ones that we recorded here that were mostly in the 1980s, and a dozen or so that we did about 15 years ago in partnership with the Canadian Museum for Human Rights. And so people can just stand there. They can also they can look for names. And so there's really a lot of
Yeah.
information in a small space.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, so the pogrom that happened in Israel on October the 7th, 2023, it marked a turning point for me. There's always been trouble in the Middle East, but the videos that
Mhm.
were showed on social media were just atrocious, despicable. How do you come to grips with that sharp rise in anti-Semitism that's happened after October 7th, and how do you fight it?
Well, it's very difficult. I mean, it was instantaneous, wasn't it? I mean, we were in, I think, a state of shock when we saw on October 7th what had happened. And of course, we know that the films that you're referring to, were recorded by the perpetrators themselves as they
Mhm.
were committing these heinous crimes. And yet, within one day, instead of sympathy, uh, there was this explosion of hate and denial as well. I
Mhm.
myself was asked to be a guest lecturer in a political science class that winter, in which at least one of the students told me that there was no proof that that had happened. And, some people that even invert this and say, oh no, well, this was a false flag operation, which of course we know isn't true. So without a long tradition of anti-Jewish hate, which is what anti-Semitism is, I don't think you could have had that instant uh, turn to an increase in hate in Canada that we're seeing, and some of the really horrific things that I've seen, here in Winnipeg, referring to there was at one of the rallies where a child was encouraged to scream, "All Zionists are racists," and what we understand a Zionist to be is someone who believes that Jews have the right to self-determination in their ancestral homeland. It in no way precludes equal rights for others in Israel or elsewhere. Um, and I saw a sign that said Holocaust 2024. And of course, we've seen the fire bombings elsewhere in Canada against synagogues and schools and community centers and businesses, and the encampments at universities that at which, there were some really hateful things that were being exhibited and said. And I think it's going to be a long way back. I think that many of us, certainly me, I wouldn't have believed this kind of thing possible. I wouldn't have believed that the extent, the breadth of hateful beliefs in our own society here is what it is.
Mhm.
There was a poll study done very recently in the United States, and it reported back that 46% of the people surveyed had anti-Semitic ideas about Jews. So we're obviously need to work harder at education. We need to start younger. Um, and I can only hope that we can reverse this very dangerous tide.
Hmm. Hmm. Social media nowadays plays a big part in Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism. And today at the Canadian Human Rights Museum, there's an event that is happening that addresses that very point. Can you talk about that a bit?
Sure. So my IRA colleague from Australia, Andre Obalor, heads up an organization that not only follows and investigates online hate, but analyzes it. And not just anti-Semitism, but Islamophobia, anti-Indigenous hate, which is also a problem in Australia. And he's going to be talking about the work that he does and about how social media does influence hate, what can be done, and really how it's changed. I found one of his studies really interesting in which he analyzed online anti-Semitism, but in different areas and how that has changed in the last year. So, the old traditional religious anti-Semitism, um, political anti-Semitism, anti-Semitism directly connected to this current conflict, etc. And it's fascinating to see how that works and how it affects the algorithms, etc. So I'm very much looking forward to his presentation.
Hmm. And from what I understand, it's completely free, but you do need to register for it, right?
Yes. Yes, because there are limited spaces and it is filling up quickly. So I hope that if anyone is interested, all they need to do is go to humanrights.ca/events and they'll find it there and they just need to register.
Perfect, perfect. I'm going to wrap things up, Belle, by asking, today is the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. What do you hope the public will reflect on and take away from this day?
I hope that they will understand how quickly words and lies and a tradition of hate can move so quickly to mass murder, um, and how human beings, and it has nothing to do with education because some of the top names in the SS had not only one but multiple PhDs. Um, how human beings can view other human beings as not worthy of life. And we need to remember that, in addition to the industrialized mass murder of Jews, that there was also a genocide against the Roma, and that, like anti-Semitism, discrimination against the Roma continues to this day in many places. The kind of, I often talk when I talk to students about and others about the fact that this was also a medically sanctioned genocide, that doctors voluntarily, doctors who were well known, who taught at the top medical schools in Germany and elsewhere, participated in inhumane experimentation on live subjects, on performing surgery without anesthesia, exposing patients to poisonous compounds, etc. And that these were well-educated people who were not fearing any kind of punishment, who did this absolutely voluntarily, and for the most part went back to their work after the war. So we need to see all human beings as equal and deserving of dignity, and we need to really do our best to fight against hate so that something like this never happens again.
Absolutely. Belle, this has been wonderful talking to you. I hope the event tonight at the Canada Museum for Human Rights, Canadian Museum for Human Rights, goes well. All the best. And thanks for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to talk to me today. This has been great.
Thank you so much.